to this. So yeah, welcome to this Meet the Trainers conversation. This is a fireside chat, what we're calling a fireside chat between myself, Sam Taylor, and Dr. Paul Taylor-Pitt. So delighted to have you here to join us in this conversation. And Paul is training the midweek intake here at the Somatic School in November. Was one of our most experienced trainers at the school. So we're delighted he's going to be joining us for this journey. And I myself, as head of training, am also training the midweek intake in November. I'm not sure if any of you are signed up to that, but looking forward. Yes, Fernando, looking forward to having you with us for that. So we have a few places left for these two cohorts, just a few left now in November. And the purpose of this conversation is for us to have a chat to explore all things somatic school. And to give you, if you haven't signed up, and I know there are many kind of Somanauts already here in the space, a flavor of the school, really the spirit of the training, the feel of the space, so that you can resonate with that, check in, make your own mind up whether this is the right training for you. So the way this is going to work is we're going to have a conversation, Paul and I. I've got a few questions up my sleeve. And we'll have a sort of generative, emergent dialogue. And then towards the end, we should have time for some questions. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. And we're delighted to have Meryl here, the school's integrator, who will pick out any questions, and we'll explore those then. How does that sound, everyone? Ready for this? All right. And Lucy's in the chat too, finishing a much needed dog walk. Fantastic.
Oh,
So Lucy's already on the weekend intake. So that's
oh,
fantastic.
fantastic. And anytime someone mentions pets, I always want an introduction to them. So pets are really welcome in this space.
Absolutely. So Lucy, if you want to give us any live footage of your dog walk, feel free, but no pressure as well. So Meryl, I'll leave you to let people in. And with that said, Paul, is there anything else it feels resonant for you to share before we get going?
So it's the weekend intake that I'm training, and I'm really excited because I've had a bit of a gap this year. I love also that between Sam, me, and Meryl, it's almost like three generations of the somatic school. Because I did my training as a participant in 2020, and Sam was one of my trainers. And then Meryl was one of my participants when I trained it. So it's almost like we've got this little lineage going on. I I can't remember Meryl, and you know, and I should, but you did tell me how many cohorts I've trained. I can't remember now. I think it's seven. Amazing. And my previous one finished in February this year. And so I've had a few months where I've been doing other work as well and writing a book and all kinds of stuff. And so I'm really excited to be coming back in November. It feels like coming home again. And Sam, just being in the space with you again, like, you know, even though it was 5 years ago, I remember the training so well. So very
Mm,
excited to be talking about it all today.
mm. Love that, Paul. And I'm sure I was delivering it from this room, which, which has now become the
Yes.
twins' bedroom, and there are cots just out of shot. But other than that, it's the same. So,
And were the twins born when you were training?
so Camille, our eldest 5-year-old, was born in 2020, just at the start of lockdown, and then it was January 2022 that
Right. Wow.
I know. So a lot's
Wow.
happened.
Yeah, a lot has happened in those 5 years.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, wonderful. Really looking forward to exploring this together, Paul. So, um, to kick us off, then, I guess, had this curiosity about whether you could share a story or a moment from training at the Somatic School that captures what, to your mind or to your body, makes this work so special.
So actually, where that takes me first is to maybe talk of how it was for me as a participant,
Hmm.
and then I might share something as a trainer. As a participant, I came in as an experienced coach, but in a very in a corporate setting, in an organizational setting. So I'd been working in organizational development, which is how I got to know Hazel, and which must be about 13 years ago. And part of that involved coaching, and it was traditional. I might describe it as like performance coaching, like developmental coaching. And I came to the Somatic School during that 2020 lockdown because I'd finished my doctorate and was getting kind of itchy brain. I just wanted something else to learn. And I was looking at doing a counseling qualification,
Mm.
but it was very intellectual. Like it was very like the conversation I had with the organizers, it was I just thought, well, this is already hurting my head.
Hmm.
And at the time in lockdown, we were doing all kinds of weird things. I ended up doing this online yoga class,
Hmm.
which was actually bro yoga. It was like yoga for men. It's very manly yoga. We used to do things like the beast pose and alligator pose, like it was very manly. And I remember the instructor one day trying to get us to do this weird thing of like flipping from one position to another. And I remember going, I can't do it. I can't do it. And he said, of course you can do it. You just need to trust your body.
Mm.
And I had, like, in that moment, this door opened up where I went, I don't trust my body. And actually, for me, it took me back to school. It took me back to being a young gay child in the changing rooms at school and how I didn't trust my body because my body was going to give me away and it wasn't safe. And there was something in that moment where I thought, ah, I have been living in my head for my whole life since then. And it's got me quite far, and it's not a bad place to be, but my body has got something to tell me. And so I went looking for something, and the somatic school was the first something that came up. And I had a conversation with Nathan, the founder of the school. And Nathan was incredibly, as he is, like not at all interested in pushing this on me. And I was like, no, sign me up. And he was like, okay, come to a session. I was like, no, sign me up. He's like, have a think. And I was like, no, sign me up. Because I knew that there was something that I wanted to discover from my body. And for me, one of the most surprising things, and I don't think I'll ever forget it, on the first day, I remember we did a practice and I had a conversation with my left nostril. And I remember thinking, what is this witchcraft? Because my left nostril immediately wanted my attention and it said to me, talk to the right one.
Mm.
And as I connected with my right nostril, I realized that I was only breathing through half my nose. And it was something in that moment that made me go, I'm only breathing half what I should be. And it became a real theme for me throughout the whole program, actually. Not just the reminder to breathe, but this constant unlocking of all of these different things that were going on in my body that I'd just been completely out of touch with.
Mhm.
And I remember, I think at the end of the course, when I was doing my evaluation, I remember saying, I love this because it feels like magic, but it's rooted in science.
Mhm.
Because what kept coming up for me again and again was this kind of complementary thing of this feels like magic, but actually it's based on neurobiology. It's based on, brain scans and all of those things that I was then able to hold both of. So when I went back and did my more kind of corporate coaching, I realized that actually there was a whole aspect of coaching that I had been missing out on.
Mhm.
So that was magical. And then what I love seeing And I see it so often in the cohorts that I've trained, is people having that moment of going, oh, there's more to this than we thought.
Mm,
There's more to coaching than we thought. There's more to the body than we thought. There's more to how we think than we thought.
mm,
And I love those moments where you just see someone like I did go, wow, I don't
mm,
quite get it. That's okay. And then come around to going, oh, now I see it.
mhm.
So that was a really long, rambling answer to a very easy question.
I love that, Paul. Really quite special. Um, I mean, that's the first time I've heard you mention the left and the right nostrils.
Oh, really? I just remember it so quickly because I remember the left one. I was like, I'm speaking to my left nostril. But the first thing it said was, no, speak to the other one. Because actually, this one was working fine. This one just nothing was going in. And it was a reminder to just breathe.
Ah,
And I guess at that time, in lockdown and COVID and the first wave of the pandemic, that was on my mind.
mm,
Like, oh, how do I keep breathing through this?
mm. And you mentioned you went back to your corporate work, and there was some realization that an aspect had been missing in
Mm.
coaching. What was that aspect?
Everything from the neck down. I think, and I didn't go back and immediately check, and because the thing with this kind of program for me is that I don't wait till the end of the program and then start putting things in practice. Like I was doing it all the time
Mm,
throughout the whole thing. And so what I noticed when I was going into those coaching conversations was that I was approaching them differently. I wasn't immediately bringing in necessarily the somatic techniques, but I was approaching the session differently because the course itself, I think, helped me be a more rounded coach. I didn't have to go in and bring in something that we hadn't contracted for or that wasn't expected, but it just made me look at things differently. I remember the space as well of the training, just the space that you and Nathan created, just being so nice, which I know is a bit of a bland word, but it was so nice. And then I'd finish that on a Sunday and then I'd go back into the office, my desktop, laptop on a Monday, and I'd be like, oh, people are not as nice here.
mm,
And it wasn't that they were not nice people, it's just that they were working in a way that I
mm,
had not even noticed until I saw the alternative,
mm,
which was a way of showing up differently, a way of honoring the whole person, not just what we think and talk about.
mm,
So, I mean, actually, I stayed in that job for about another year and then left and
mm,
decided it was time to go out into the world and do my own work. So, actually, for the past 3.5 years, almost 4 years, I've now been, running my own practice, which includes coaching, and then was invited to come back and train as a trainer at the Somatic School, which was an amazing compliment. So I
mm,
think like it sounds over exaggerated to say it was life changing, but for me, it was life changing.
mm,
And I see people going through it, whether they come from a coaching background or they come from a more body oriented background. And I think it's impossible to go through this and not be changed.
mm. Yeah, I love what you said. I mean, it's really great to hear that, by the way. It feels nice to hear it. And um, the thing you said about honoring the whole person,
Mm,
is the spirit that we try to train in, this spirit of honoring the whole of what's here in our experience. And that then becomes the way that we coach. How can we honor the whole of what's here in the client's experience?
mm,
And that's a
yeah.
bit different to the way we show up at work, I guess, in many organizational contexts.
And beyond coaching, I notice when I'm working with groups now, even if it's something on a very, I don't know, very technical level or a business level, I still bring that same approach to those groups.
Mm,
And one of the philosophies, I guess, that I picked up was this idea of like easy does it
mhm,
when you're in the training space. See how you can do less, like really attending to yourself and and listening to your body so that you're not just sitting here all day. If you want to, you can move around, you can stretch, you can go and get a drink, all that stuff. I use that now when I'm working with groups corporately. And the first time I said it, someone gasped.
Mhm.
And they went, no one's ever said that to us before. Because I said, look, we're in a room together. If you
Mm,
need to stand up and stretch, stand up and stretch. If you need to
mm,
go and have a nap under the table, go and have a nap under the table. And they were like, oh, but this is different. And so there's so much both from the coaching practice, the coaching skills, the mindset, and that whole approach to how we show up that actually still shows up in my work.
mm,
And I see the impact it has, whether I'm using a traditional somatic technique or if I'm just bringing in actually how can I take some of this space into that space. I see how people respond to it.
mm, mm. Yeah, and you mentioned that it's all based, there is a scientific basis to all of it, right? The latest nervous system science and neurobiology speaks to the benefit of some of this
Mm.
learning for growth, for resilience. Um, so I wonder if this is a nice bridge, Paul, into the next kind of question. Obviously, we're kind of playing table tennis a little bit and seeing what comes. But let me serve this one to you if you're open to it. So this is when you think about the people who are drawn to this training, what do you notice that they've got in common beyond
Mm.
job titles or backgrounds?
The first thing that comes to mind is maybe not answering the question, but I'll get to it. Because the first thing that comes to mind is what's different about them,
Mm,
which I think for me is equally interesting than what they have in common. Because what I see in terms of difference is I've met people from all around the world,
mhm,
from all different cultures, all different backgrounds, who are in different time zones, who have somehow been drawn to this space because something was missing somewhere, or they had heard that this was something different. And so I came to it from a place of being a more kind of traditional coach, which I still think is great. I still love doing that kind of work. I've trained people who are yoga teachers, who are psychotherapists, who are accountants, who are
mm,
lawyers, who are from all different backgrounds. I've trained people who are at the beginning of their coaching careers who have maybe started by saying, I don't really know if I want to be a coach. I just want to give it a go. And I've
mhm,
trained people who have been coaching for 25 years. I've trained people who are like me and others who are the opposite to me. They're like the difference is amazing. I guess when I think about what they have in common, there is something about there has to be a better way than this, which I think is something of interest. I think there's also a curiosity that people bring. I mean, it's hard to generalize because it may not be the case for everyone, but I guess some of the things I come away with is a feeling of people wanting to make a difference, wanting to make a difference to others, and also wanting to make a difference to themselves.
mm,
And and I don't know, and maybe it'd be interesting to hear from your perspective, Sam, as well, because I'm only seeing it through my eyes. But people who hold themselves to account,
mhm,
actually, I think there is a real, and sometimes maybe a bit too much. Like there's a sense of like, oh, we need to get it right, we need to do it well. Like there's a real sense of wanting to be good coaches, which in some respects we try and undo and and let go of that. But this sense of, yeah, wanting to make a difference, wanting to be
mm,
able to show up and be with people while they change.
mm,
What about you?
mm.
What do you notice? Because it might be
Yeah,
different.
yeah. I think the point you make about you want to do it right is quite interesting. Yeah, there's a real sense of our coaches these days, our Somanauts, there's a real commitment to the work.
Mm,
They come to the Somatic school because They're looking for a rigorous, robust framework,
Mm,
and that and this kind of moves into the next part, but like true to coaching, true to somatics,
mm,
something that is absolutely rooted in the International Coaching Federation's framework, but which also offers something that that maybe is the missing piece that you've kind of alluded to. And we also get a lot of integrative people who bring in together
yeah,
our real world inquiries at the end of the course, where one of it's an assignment where people take something that's resonated for them and apply it to a part in their life. The uniqueness and the diversity of how the gets applied into life, into coaching, into all kinds of different avenues. It's really quite
yeah.
special. Yeah.
Yeah, I made a bath bomb as my
Yeah, I
real
think
world.
ducks involved or something.
It was about bath bombs and rubber ducks because it was about immersing yourself in this thing that was both magic and science because I'd never made a bath bomb before. But I was thinking about, for me, one of the bits of learning was I think I'd been treating my work as having a quick shower. And actually, what this was helping me was to steep into a bath and slow down and really immerse myself in it. And so I learned how to make a bath bomb, which is actually really cool science. It's like these ingredients and you shape it together and then it does this. But it was also, then it came with a rubber duck, which was the magic of it. And
Mm,
then I've seen other people's kind of real world inquiry projects as being, how do I work with trauma in children? Or how do I use this work with women in developing countries who are trying to start their own businesses? Or how do I bring this to schools? And it's like, wow, and that, so again, there's that difference, which I love. And then I think what the word you used of commitment, I think that's so powerful. It's that commitment to then channeling it into something.
mm, mm. And also something I notice um, is commitment to each other, like within the
Mm,
group, the level of connection and support is quite special. Again, I've used the word special, but it creates this kind of environment where we can be more open to experience, to what wants to emerge, to what wants to be known in service to our coaching agendas, to the forward potential that's within us.
it made me laugh when you said commitment to each other because it was one of the things I noticed about moving from participant to trainer.
Oh,
Because in my group, like we're still in touch, five
yeah.
years later through like a WhatsApp group, and now and again we still see each other in person if we're in town.
We've just been on a podcast this morning.
Yes, I was just recording a podcast this
We
morning
are
with
Somanauts, right?
with other people.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought the same thing would happen as a trainer. I thought I would automatically be invited to join the WhatsApp groups, and I wasn't. And immediately I thought,
Ah, yes.
and then I was like, actually, no, that's not my place. I have my group. That
Yeah.
was my group, and we have that. And so I love now when I hear someone on that first weekend say, should we set up a WhatsApp group? Because I think, oh, you've done it. You've self organized, you've created it. And then when I catch up with people, whether I bump into them or whether it's through an online space, and they're like, oh, yeah, these people say hi because they're all still in touch. And it's this connection of, I don't know, just going beyond the boundaries of the screen, which I love.
Mm, mm. Um, so, in terms of the way of working, Paul, when we say true to somatics, true to coaching, that's what body-oriented coaching strives to be. That's really the lineage of it. Like, what does that mean to you in your practice?
I think there's something about the both. Like it's never one or the other, it's always both. And what it's helped me to work out is which one, to what extent, and for how long.
Mm,
So that when I'm in a coaching session, sometimes it's perfectly fine to have a session which is very
mhm,
conceptual and maybe just dropping in like a light touch of the somatic practice.
mhm,
And other times a client might want to spend most of the time in a focusing conversation with themselves, speaking to their nostrils.
Mhm.
And I love that it's both, and that it's not that one is right and one is wrong. And I love that. So I'd been trained like as an internal coach in my organization, but then through me doing my somatic school training, it then meant I got my ICF qualification. And in a way that was kind of unexpected for me because I was thinking this was going to be all about somatic coaching. And then actually it was like, oh no, I now get an ICF, I now get an international accreditation. And they just emailed me to say the window's now open for reapproval. I thought, well, that's come around quickly. So I love that, there's the credibility, the legitimacy, the corporateness of an ICF framework, but that we're able to then integrate somatics into that. It's not separate. It's not this or that. And through the process of working at both, I just think it's made me a better coach completely because it's a professional coaching qualification. I don't yeah, I'm always really clear like when it comes to the kind of breakout spaces that people go into and the practices that people go into. Like I love it when I hear someone say, "Oh, I got so much from that as a client."
Mm.
But it's always in service of the coach. Like
Mhm.
this isn't a space to come and work through stuff. Sometimes that happens anyway,
Mhm.
but it's always in service of the coach in training. And so I love that we're able to offer both, that we can give people a space to develop as professional coaches and do that by incorporating somatic techniques and philosophies and practices, and that both are okay, that both sit together.
Mm.
I always,
Well,
again, I always say to people on day one, like, ring fence a book budget
mhm.
because not just from the reading list that we give, but also from people show up and they go, "Oh, have you read this book?" Like the number of Amazon deliveries I got during the course was ridiculous because I just kept going, "Oh, there's this as well." And so for me, it's really deepened my coaching practice and coaching credibility. And then it's also opened this door to this whole other stuff that I didn't have much awareness of around body oriented work. And I love the blend of both. And Lucy, I
Mm.
love your jumper as well. You've just shown up and it's like amazing.
Yes. Uh, we're sourcing from Lucy's jumper. Thank you. Um, I think there's something you said there, Paul, around both, which feels so resonant. Um, it's like both conceptual and embodied, both kind of rigorous from a kind of coaching standpoint, but also, I suppose, magical from the kind of somatic standpoint. But
Yeah.
also this emphasis on the training in terms of if you want to go into the books, you can, but you absolutely don't need to either to get it. And I think somehow it might be because of the focus on experience. What's your sense of that?
I mean, I think, and actually, maybe that's why it did seem such an attractive thing because I am very much a let me get on and try it and learn that way. I like having some of the background theory, but also, I came to the somatic school just after I'd finished my doctorate, so my head was full and I didn't really want
Yeah.
to have to write another assignment. And so I loved that it could be done in a way that was so doing it through practice,
Mm.
but that wasn't at the cost of going, oh yeah, but I can go and watch this YouTube video or read this book or dive into some of the kind of academic stuff on it. So I loved both. And I think coaching for me as a practice, and I quote Claire Pedrick a lot, who's
Yeah.
someone that we focus a lot in on well, all through the course, but module one in particular, Claire Pedrick wrote an amazing book called Simplifying Coaching. And actually, she's written a second book called The Human Behind the Coach. And we draw a lot of that in our work. And then I was so impressed. I approached her and she's now my coaching supervisor. And Claire talks a lot about something which I then have stolen, where she says, you know, coaching is really special and really magical. And
Mm,
it's not special and it's not magical at all. It's just two people having a conversation about one of us.
mm,
And I always think about that when I'm going into coaching, when I'm like, actually, yeah, there's all of this history of people who've given their life's work to this and they've made it so brilliant. And also, it's just two people in
mm,
a room or a space like this
mm,
focusing on one of us.
mm,
And that it's both. It has the rich history and the thinking and the theory and the practice and the science, and it's then whatever happens in the moment just between two people having a
mm,
conversation where we're focused on one of us.
mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
I mean, it's mind blowing. Like, there's so many different things I can think of, and you haven't asked me, but now as you say, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's moments that make me smile. I remember working with a client, an artist, and he came because he was thinking about entering some of his work into a competition, but he said he was feeling really stuck. And we met, we did one session online like this, and then we had a walking session together. And as we were talking, he was wearing this pendant, and it was like hitting him in the chest as we were walking. And he said, "Oh, that's what I'm missing. There's no heartbeat in my work."
Mm,
And so we did some work around that, and then he entered the competition. He won the competition. You know, that was amazing for him.
mm,
And when I saw him afterwards, he said, "Oh, now and again, I just let my pendant move
mm,
because it
mm,
reminds me that my heartbeat
mm,
needs to be in this work."
mm,
And so it's those moments where like that's so magical and so special. And yet it came because we had created the conditions for that to be possible.
mm,
You know, it might be magical, but I don't think it's ever accidental.
mm,
And so much of that, so much of it is the client doing their own thinking, their own experience. And so much of the responsibility that we have as coaches is to create the conditions where that's possible.
yeah,
So in some ways, you know, it takes a lot of work for it to be so effortless.
yeah.
And so much that goes on in my own head as a coach to make it look like nothing's going on.
Mhm,
So yeah, it does make me smile a lot because I think, oh, you know, I come out of a session, I'm like, "Phew, okay,
mm, yeah.
did it."
Yeah, because on the one level, we're creating the conditions, as we say. We're in presence together. We we allow ourselves to come to our own experience and for our body's wisdom to speak. And
Mm,
that seemed to be what happened there with the pendant, that such a powerful symbol and insight came through that kind of shifted that for him.
yeah.
Yeah.
And from my own experience, both as a participant and a trainer and a coach, what I now realize is my body was speaking all along and I just wasn't listening. It was like being in a room with a smoke detector going off and just tuning
Yeah.
it out.
And then on top of that, there's the lineage of, in addition and in counterbalance, the lineage of, let's say, kind of some of the spiritual traditions, Taoism, that seem to inform a lot of the coaching paradigm of
Mm,
the late 70s, and then the person-centered approach, the entire lineage through body psychotherapy of Gestalt and focusing, and Gendlin's connection with Carl Rogers, and how that unfolded into Hakomi and other systems that are adjacent, like internal family systems. And so there's in a way the both and of the simplicity, but also for speaking for myself, like I needed, it's like my mind needed to have the concepts as well,
mm,
so that I could also return to simplicity.
mm,
Something about those things. But ultimately, what we say in the space is really just have your own experience,
mm.
see for yourself, and see what resonates. Take that, leave what's behind. whilst at the same time offering this kind of coherent whole, like a whole way of working that can see you in every context.
I think of it like, when you're on holiday and you go to breakfast at the hotel and they've laid out this amazing stuff, you can try lots of stuff and then you don't have to eat it all. You don't, you can just have the stuff you like
Yeah,
and try some stuff that you maybe wouldn't normally try if you were at home. But
yeah.
everything's offered. Like as you were describing all of those things earlier, I had a little bit of pride because I was like, oh yeah, I know about those things, which I couldn't have said 5 years ago. But also that these are really strong ideas that we hold really lightly
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that they are there. They have the foundations, they have the kind of pillars of all of that, and we hold them really lightly. And it always makes me sound a bit X Factor, but it's like you make it your own. You take that song and you perform it in your way. This isn't about
Yes.
churning people out as carbon copy coaches.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about really bringing everything of yourself to it that you
Yeah.
want to
Mm,
and integrating it into your style of coaching.
yeah, yeah. There's the personhood aspect and the human behind the coach, as Claire Pedrick would say. So, Paul, if you're at a dinner party and if you had to describe what body onto coaching is to, you're sat next to someone for the first time and you were to describe it in a sentence or two, like what might you say?
It's a good question. None of my family has a clue what I do for a living. They've never understood what I do. So maybe I need to keep practicing this. For me, I would describe it as bringing our thoughts and our bodies together to make change easier for people.
Mm,
Like at the most simple level. If I was to kind of, if someone was then interested and wanted to follow up, I would describe it as kind of the fusion of traditional coaching with somatic practice to give people a deeper understanding of themselves and how they can achieve what they want to in the world.
mm, mm,
But it depends who's asking, to be honest.
mhm,
If it was a chief exec of a
mm,
business, I would say it's about making space for people to be their best selves at work.
mm,
If I was talking to someone who was coming from a perspective of being a yoga teacher, I would say it's about giving you a framework to help people practice better. I
mm,
think so much of it is, it's not necessarily that there's one answer for everyone. I think you can take from it what you need to. I think our role at the school is to lay out that breakfast buffet and go, here's the framework, here's the evidence, here's the methods. It's like learning to drive in a way. You kind
mhm,
of you go through a process with someone sitting next to you so that when you get the thing at the end of it, you get the certificate and they're not in the car anymore, you feel okay to then start learning how to drive properly.
mm,
So yeah, that's more than two sentences.
mhm.
By this point, people would be going, okay, are we on dessert? Yeah, move on.
Which one's your favorite? Or,
Well,
or for yourself, like if you were to summarize it for yourself, what might you say?
oh, for me, I just think it's coaching done properly.
Mm.
And I don't, I am such a big fan of coaching, and traditional coaching is absolutely great. And I'm
Yeah.
off to do some this afternoon with someone who would never ask for any somatic techniques, but I still show up better because of it.
Mm. Yeah, and I think what lends us a big hand around this kind of coaching done properly is a lot of the research that came out in the 2000s, 2010s, the kind of social neuroscience that shows how change is embodied.
Hmm.
Okay? That although it might appear that we're not in contact with our body, we're always in contact with our bodies.
Hmm.
The experiential level that change actually happens. We can't change when we're telling a story about what's happened in the past. We have to be experiencing it freshly for the neurons to kind of rewire, to fire and rewire, for our nervous systems to. So So I
And
love what
actually,
you're saying.
that if I was to add a third or a fourth sentence at that dinner party, it also makes me think about what it's not.
Ah,
So it's not therapy,
yeah,
it's not mentoring,
yeah.
it's not advice giving, it's not Reiki healing. It's like there's a lot of things that are kind of adjacent or maybe overlapping, but actually it's not those things. There might be similar techniques or similar, with your eyes half closed from a distance, it might look like the same thing, but actually what I love about this work is that I'm really clear about the boundaries of it, that this is a very particular kind of practice. It's not therapy. It doesn't have a backward looking orientation. It's very much about what's going on in the moment that's helping or hindering you get to where you want to be. And my role is not to give you advice. My role is to be with you and do some thinking. So, the practice of certainly when I'm in the training space is being really clear about holding that boundary that this
Mm,
isn't this isn't therapy. That's
mm,
different. There might
mm,
be similar things like asking a question or listening skills, but it's not therapy. And
mm,
equally, it's not mentoring. It might look really similar, like listening and asking questions, but we're not then giving advice.
mm,
So, so yeah, for me, it's as important to know what it's not as much as what it is.
mm. And you were mentioning before the call, Paul, that you have your own somatic practice, like every week, you have a focusing um, practice. What does that give you that you might not be able to get elsewhere?
So I guess, I mean, without going into too much of the detail of it, because especially for the folk who haven't experienced it before, focusing is a particular skill that we train on the course, and it's a very kind of internal conversational practice. Is how I would describe it. So I have a focusing buddy who I met on the course, and we still meet once a week, 5 years later. And for me, that gives me a space every Monday morning before I start work where I can sort my head out. And like this week, the thing that I brought was feeling really frustrated at something that was supposed to be happening but wasn't. And I described it as feeling like I wanted to just burn the place down. And in my focusing practice this week, we were experimenting with heat, internal heat, and the sensations of heat. And what I was able to do through that was realize that actually I needed it to be more than a match, but I needed it to be less than a dragon burning down a village. And the work that we did together made me realize that I needed to bring the heat of a creme brulee blowtorch because I wanted to apply some heat to the situation, but not to burn it down. And that all came from this internal focusing practice. It wouldn't, I honestly don't think I could have ever got there through just thinking about it, but it came through the sensations I was getting when I was kind of being led through this process of connecting with those different parts of me that experience those different levels of heat.
Mm,
And so that kind of practice for me, like me and my focusing buddy, we don't charge each other for, we just do it every week because it's now become such a integral part of my week. And
mm,
also it gives me the chance to practice as well as receive it. So we
mm,
split the hour. We do half an hour each. I get to experience what it's like and bring something every week. And then I get to practice what it's like working with, the same person over a long period of time and still see something
mm,
really useful happen. So yeah, it kind of keeps me sharp and it keeps me surprised because I don't ever want to not see this as surprising.
mm,
And also I think that regular practice is something, it kind of anchors me in my week, which
mm.
can then have 25 different things going on.
So obviously that's a really embodied process there that you said gets your head right, gives you a sense,
Mm,
my words, but like a sense of rightness around how to proceed or where to go next or
mm.
what feels like the right next step. What might you say, Paul, to a coach who wonders whether something that's as embodied as that can really fit in a professional coaching framework like the ICF, like the level two accreditation?
Well, because even and and I'll give credit to Joe, my focusing buddy, because Joe is amazing. Even within that relatively short space of time, half an hour each, we still treat it like a coaching session. We don't just like open our laptop and go, okay, close your eyes. We still do the bit at the beginning, which is around contracting. What are we doing today? How are we working together? We look at what would be good outcomes. Then we hold space for the focusing practice, and then we close the session properly. What did we want to get? So there's the framework for me is like the container that means the embodied practice in the middle has the space to thrive.
Yeah.
So it's still both. Like even in that embodied space, there's still the the sense making of it, which is a very conceptual thing. So yes, there was my creme brulee blowtorch, and then what Joe helped me was, and how will you apply that this week?
Mm, mm. Yeah, I love what you're saying, Paul, because the ICF uh, is kind of clear ethically, as you mentioned, what is coaching, what is not, um, and it has its competencies, which are quite clear as well in terms of saying
Yeah,
what coaching is, what it isn't. But within that clarity, there is space, a lot of
yeah,
space for kind of emergent, insight-oriented work. And that's something that really inspires us. This is where we feel that with a level two training, like the accredited diploma, actually the somatic skills naturally are aligned to what in the ICF they call the PCC level, the professional certified coach. Um, and there's like a real rigor here as well.
yeah. The thing that surprised me, like when I embarked on that ICF journey, I was already dreading it because I was like, oh no, it's a test. You have to go through an actual exam online. And what changed my mind about that was it was less about, can you remember these competencies? And it was much more like I hadn't realized how much it was based on ethics.
Mm,
And it was much more about applying your skills against an ethical framework. So the competencies were really important, but actually what really landed with me was the ethical framework of this.
mm,
And I actually had a much greater appreciation for those standards because I was like, oh no, the competencies are fine. Actually, it's the ethics of doing this work, which is where we can sometimes get into a gray area.
mm,
And so to kind of really have to focus on those for the exam and then to go through that process, I think I just had a different appreciation for it because
mm,
it did make me realize that actually, yeah, you can be a great coach, but probably the most important thing is just how you show up and what your
mm,
intention is,
mm,
how ready you are to walk away from stuff that isn't ethical or that isn't right.
mm,
So
mm.
so yeah, I was
Yeah.
surprised by that.
Yeah. And we're thinking we're always saying really that the Somanauts are pioneers. This is a new thing that somatic coaching that's also completely aligned to the ICF to the professional regulatory context for coaching. And as part of that, where this is taking the school is in the development of supervision competencies. And really, this is new for the world of coaching. Certain
Mm,
other bodies like the EMCC, the AC have been slightly more supervision oriented than the ICF. The ICF has now brought out supervisor competencies. And so we're seeing that uh, there's a need for coaching supervision for body oriented or somatic process oriented coaching that addresses exactly what you're saying, the ethical part,
mm,
but also, of course, the formative kind of skills part, but also like the restorative part of, supporting coaches to feel energized and well, uh, because of course that serves them, that serves their clients, that serves
mm.
the sector.
And I think you're maybe a more spiritual or well-rounded person than I am because I'm still incredibly competitive, and I still love the fact that the somatic school is the world's first to get that accreditation as a somatic, and I will never apologize for that because I love that. we've been able to be part of something that is the world's first. And I think you're very humble about that. Whereas I'm just like, yeah, you're welcome.
Celebrating that. Fair, fair. Enjoy it. Um, yeah, we also got another ICF award last year, which was the something coach
Oh,
education
see,
provider.
see, that's
Oh,
the humility. Oh, it was
yeah,
just
yeah,
an
yeah.
award. It was something. It was amazing.
Right. Paul, thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing, for, speaking of yourself, for, letting us into that. We have one question, I think, that's come in. So we've got about 8 minutes, I think, to throw this to the floor. And also, thank you everyone for staying.
Yeah.
That's been very reassuring for us that people haven't been leaving in their droves as this has been happening. Um, Nina had a question, which can kick us off next, which is, how has the somatic coaching method been received in the corporate world? I agree this has been completely missing and would love to see more of that approach in the future.
Mm. So, in my experience, it's only been received positively, and it's partly because I think, and this is a word that I only learned recently, but I quite like it. It's about the titration of it.
Mhm.
It's like this the concentration of it. So when I think about somatic work through the course, what we train is not just the stuff like focusing, which is the very kind of internal, conversation with yourself. It's also about using your body and using the space around your body. So we train like constellations where you're physically moving around a space to access different wisdom from different parts of your environment. And we train like something called object feedback, where I might just pick something up and go, okay, what conversation can I have with this? So in some ways, those kind of techniques, there's for me, they're still about the physicality of coaching, the embodiment of coaching. And I find that those go down really well in corporate
Mm,
spaces without even having to talk about them as being somatic practices. If someone's talking about feeling like with their manager, they're just pushing against a closed door, I might invite them to have a bit of an experiment and say, okay, well, maybe push against that door over there, see what happens. And that's about using their physical wisdom to then connect with, oh yeah, actually this is pointless or whatever. So again, it depends on the person, depends on the context, but there's so many different kind of skills and techniques that we train that don't always have to involve the full on, okay, I'm just going to lead you through a thing where you're sitting quiet with your eyes closed. It can be brought in so many different ways. And, sometimes I'll mention it as, okay, there's an embodied technique, or sometimes I might just say something like, oh, do you fancy giving this a go?
mm,
So in that respect, I think for me, Nina, it's been surprisingly easy because it's like coaching plus, it's like knowing there are other things that I can do. If someone is getting really stuck going round and round in their head, and I know that because I overthink everything, that's the moment when I think, oh, actually, yeah,
mm,
imagine that conversation with your manager was this pencil. What would it
mm,
say to you? Just things like that where you go, there are different ways of accessing wisdom. So in that
mm,
respect, my own experience has been really positive because I don't know, it is. It's like it gives access to the unexpected.
mm. Yeah, love that. Love that, Paul. Thank you so much.
Thank
Um,
you.
oh,
Thank you for
Nina,
the question.
Nina, how did that land for you?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. I have a corporate background, so it kind of is very interesting because, yeah, from my experience, it's very, very much on the mind still. Um, so I think it's just a great way to get more out of it. I would say as well. So yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
Great, yeah.
right.
Judy's got one, and then I think we've got just about time for Judy's, and then uh, how could someone with no coaching experience be part of this process, Judy? You mean
Oh,
the client? Oh, is that the client, Judy? I'm presuming so. The
oh,
coach.
I thought coach. Yeah,
Okay.
and actually, that I think it's a lovely question because the course has evolved a lot over time, actually. When I did my training, we dropped straight into what's now module 2,
Yes.
which is where the nostril came in. Whereas in the current course, module 1 is the foundations of coaching, which still weaves in some of the embodied flavors. But for me, module 1 gives you everything you need if you've never coached before. I mean, obviously, this is professional coaching training, so we come back to that all the way through. It's not like we talk about it once and then forget it, but module 1 is focused completely on here's what coaching is and what it isn't. Here's the basic techniques, here's the skills, and all of the rest kind of comes from those foundations. So, there are people who haven't practiced as coaches before, and even the people who have, there's an equalizing that happens in module 1. It's almost like it brings everyone to the same level and resets some stuff as well. So yeah, I think it's a great question.
Mm. Yeah, love that. What if maybe if you can answer this in a short and sweet. We've got one last one from Zad, which is, what's a piece of advice you'd give a student to make the most of this program while they're in it?
Just love it. Love it. Like, love the experience. Love the, like, often, particularly, like, I know you asked me for a short thing, so I'll just be really quick. But sometimes when you're learning something, you kind of go into that space of conscious incompetence
Mm,
where you go, oh, I thought I knew what I was doing, but actually, this is making me think. Just love it. Just love the learning, love the messiness of it, love the confusion of it, and love the clarity of it.
Yeah, I might add to that, trust in the not knowing, which I think you're
Mm.
incredible at holding, Paul, but trust in the not knowing and that clarity is coming. Okay, well, thank you so much, Paul. It's really been like really rich, really
Thank
lovely
you.
to catch up and to connect as well. Um, so thank you, Paul. And Meryl has got a slide actually, um, for anyone who's thinking of joining. This is the 7th year. This is actually this month, the 7th anniversary of the Somatic School. And for that, we've got an anniversary offer. Paul, you mentioned working with groups. We've now got a group coaching certificate, and we talked about supervision. So that's all part of this offer. Meryl, is there anything you'd add?
Just to remind people, yeah, the two last cohorts we have this coming up this year. So starting Paul's is starting on the 31st of October, sneaking in just right at the end of October there for the welcome session, and that's the weekend course, and there's a few places left on that. And then Sam is running the midweek, which is starting on the 12th of November, and there's a few places left for that. So just to note those, all the information on the website. And yeah, I think a few of these 7th anniversary offers have already gone. So yeah, if you are interested in enrolling, then yeah, book a call in with a course consultant, and they can help you with next resonant steps.
Thank you, Meryl. Paul, I feel like I should have given you a space for any final words. Like somehow I feel slightly incomplete.
No, no. The only thing I was thinking there was, oh, so I'm starting on Halloween. Maybe I get to dress up.
Oh my goodness.
I'd love that for people who didn't come to this session to turn up and go, why is he dressed like a witch?
And that's
No,
the
thank you.
welcome
This has been
session.
amazing.
Yeah, it's been lovely. And that's the welcome session on the 31st of October, isn't it? So wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for being here. It's been a real pleasure. Yeah, go well, and hope to see you again soon. Obviously, many of you we will see again soon. You're already in the community. Looking forward to seeing you then. If anyone feels called, we'll be delighted to have you in the community. In the meantime, go well, everyone. It's been lovely to connect.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very much.
everyone. Great
Thank
to see
you.
you.
Guys, bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Meryl, I always feel like